based on the evidence you will see in this chapter, it is certain that there is a sunken continent in the Pacific Ocean, but there may be another sunken continent in the Atlantic Ocean. So Mu and Atlantis may be the same continents, and the same sunken continent may be called Mu by some and Atlantis by others. Or Atlantis and Mu could be two different sunken continents in two different oceans. It is up to you to decide whether it is two different continents or one continent. The legend of the flooded continent of Atlantis, initially believed to be a myth, has inspired many European writers. Many books have been written about it. Even famous writers like Montaigne, Buffon, and Voltaire believed in this legend. In addition, 13 flood legends have been compiled in Asia, 4 in Europe, 5 in Africa, 9 in Australia and the South Sea Islands, and 37 in North, South, and Central America. Also, the Sumerians, based on the historical fact of the Great Flood, and without the slightest doubt, divide the rulers of Mesopotamia into pre-flood kings and post-flood kings in their lists. In the Sumerian works called Vakayi name, there are explanations such as, and then the great flood happened, and after the flood, the kings came down from the sky again. Every legend has a greater or lesser degree of truth. Many events known as legends, such as Troy, have been found to be real as a result of scientific research. As we will explain in a moment, increasing scientific and historical evidence has shown that the continent of Atlantis, or Mu, initially categorized as a myth, actually existed. Atlantis, or the land of Mu, existed in the past and sank to the bottom of the ocean as a result of volcanic eruptions. Ocean scientists who study volcanic eruptions and tectonic movements, and historians confirm the existence of a submerged continent called Atlantis or Mu. Today, the existence of many sunken continents in the oceans is recognized by geophysicists and accepted by the scientific community. Submerged continents such as Pacifica, Zealandia, Mauritia, Great Adria have been discovered by scientists today, and their existence has been proven. They state that these continents sank millions of years ago as a result of tectonic movements. These sunken continents sank into the ocean as they were. However, ancient records and scientific data suggest that Mu or Atlantis sank as recently as 10,000 BC as a result of a natural disaster. So why do some scientists deny the existence of Mu? First of all, they said that soil layer are only found on land, and that according to the theory of plate tectonics, soil layer cannot be found under the ocean. However, when new discoveries revealed the existence of both sunken continents like Maurita and submerged continents like Zealandia, it became clear that there could be soil layer under the ocean as well. In the wake of this development, scientists who deny the existence of Mu have said that there is no soil layer in the places where Mu or Atlantis is said to have been. But with new discoveries, as we will show later, many sunken human artifacts have been found under the ocean in the area where Mu is claimed to have been. So the soil layer, which was once a landmass, was definitely submerged in the area where Mu was. This landmass may even have broken into pieces and sunk. Also, those who deny the existence of the continent of Mu talk as if the floor of the ocean has been completely mapped, and yet the continent of Mu has not been found. However, today we know more about Mars than our own planet. It must be because governments do not want the oceans to be explored. Although billions of dollars are allocated to space expenditures, there are not enough funds for the exploration of the oceans. The budget allocated to NASA for space exploration is about $3.8 billion. NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, on the other hand, receives a low budget of $23.7 million. Today, more people have been to space than have been to the bottom of the ocean. Although we have mapped the surrounding planets, the bottom of the ocean is still unmapped. Scientists have reported that by 2030, the mapping of the underwater world will be finished. So it is a sad fact that today we do not know 70% of our world, there is a clear fact that the sinking of the Mu was preceded by a great catastrophic flood. If the allegation of meteorites falling on Mu is true, this triggered volcanic activity and upset the balance of water underground and above ground. Land and water shifted, and the sinking of this great continent changed the water levels in many parts of the world, at least for a while. Now let us continue with the views of scientists who prove the existence of the global flood. First of all, it should be noted that all scientists agreed that there was an abnormally high rise in sea level about 12,000 years ago, that is, 10,000 BC, and that at least 3/4 of the animals of that time died in some unknown way, but they cannot explain why. Sane scientists realized that the only fact that could have caused this was the Great Flood, so much so that Noah's flood has gained weight as a scientific theory and is now accepted even by mainstream scientific circles, although it is known that there was a glacial age at that time, and although ice did not cover the whole world, it was a relatively colder period than today, and the sea level rose with the melting of the ice. The reason for this sudden change and deaths is not clear. What caused the ice to melt so much and cause such a great flood? According to some scientists who accept the global flood theory, the consequences of the flood are so great and obvious that one of these evidences alone is sufficient to prove the flood. For example, according to Ralph Franklin Walworth and Jeffrey Walworth Shostrom, the very low water level during the last ice age alone is a sufficient reason for the existence of Mu. The general summary of the evidence we will now present is this: the formation of some geologically certain layers in some parts of the world can only be due to a water catastrophe, because the other possibility, the volcanic factor, does not pile up layers of rock, gravel, and sand, but the gigantic earthquake or flood waves pick up the rocks in their path and drag and roll them until they lose their water-bearing capacity. These are the very obvious global evidences. The scientific evidence for the existence of a global flood can be summarized as follows: polystrate fossils, clastic vein rocks, solid matter streams, extensive areas of sediment layer and pancake type stratification, numerous fossil whales found at different altitudes, the discovery of seashells or marine fossils in mountains around the world, the discovery of large numbers of frozen mammoths and mammoth bones in Siberia, Alaska, and northern Europe, mixed animal bones found in crevices in the rocks, large foreign rock blocks being transported, the great current of water that brings fresh water to the Gulf of Mexico, formation of the Black Sea. According to some scientists, this flood was caused by comet impacts that triggered the Earth's core. Professor Alexander Tolman of the world-renowned Geological Institute of the University of Vienna has provided two important pieces of evidence for the fact of a comet, one of the parameters of the global flood and the most important one. One of the comet evidence is the distribution of molten rock fragments called tektites or glassy meteorite fragments scattered by the impact of a comet strike. Tolman says the following about this: there is a very high concentration of these glassy meteorites among the 10,000 years old sediments. When we look at the characteristics of 10,000 years old sediment levels in different parts of the Earth, we realize that 7 large and many small comets hit the Earth. The second important discovery was a sudden increase in carbon, 14 in fossilized trees from the same period. Tolman states that this is due to the destruction of the ozone layer by comets and the release of very high levels of radiation into the atmosphere, thus increasing the amount of carbon-14. Tolman supports his theory with mythological data from ancient cultures in the Middle East, China, India, and America. Tolman's explanation about these myths is as follows: all of these mythological stories were written down long after the event, but this information must have been passed down orally from generation to generation until it was written down. they still show so many and extraordinary similarities. For example, these accounts from different cultures all contain descriptions of the earth being threatened by 7 burning suns, followed by the flood and other catastrophes. Using these 2 sources of information, Tolman was able to date the flood at 9,600 BC. This is a very realistic date because it is in line with the dates of other scientific data that you will see in the documentary. On the other hand, Mike Bailey, a renowned expert in the study of tree rings, supports his research with mythology. According to Bailey's analysis of tree rings, the comets that fell on Tom Tunguska triggered 20 megaton explosions that triggered earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, and outgassing from the ocean floor. The volcano ash found at the poles was found to be 10,000 minus 14,000 years old. According to a research project in Greenland, the Ice Age ended exactly 11,711 years ago, and the Earth became habitable for human society. Jorgen Peter Steffensen, a researcher at the Center for Ice and Climate at the University of Copenhagen, said, "According to the detailed findings we have obtained from samples taken from the ice layers, the end of the Ice Age and the transition to a temperate climate happened very quickly, as if a switch was flipped."